Hello. One of the things that I like to do with my students is to give them opportunities outside of class to learn material for either extension and sometimes for remediation. One of the things that we noticed, obviously, this last year through the pandemic, our school district stayed open through the pandemic. And that meant that a lot of times kids were gone because somebody in their house tested positive or they had tested positive and they were in quarantine. And so I needed to find a way for my students to be able to do the things that they needed to from home and yet still feel a part of the class as a whole. And so one of the things I did was I used Loom, which is what I'm using to make these videos. And I took ideas and things that I would teach normally in class, and I just turned them into Loom videos and then made them an assignment. And so one of the assignments here is I did a bunch of principles on healthy singing, the very basics. And so first I created a Loom video and entered that in Canvas as part of the test that they were going to take. And so students could come here and they could watch this particular thing.
Welcome to the Principles of Healthy Singing.
There I am talking, which is just what you all want to hear is me
Before we
talking
discuss
twice.
the principles of healthy singing, we need to understand some of the basics for how instruments produce sound.
Okay, so that's what I did is I created the video and I ran along things that I did in class. And so then afterwards, the students that were in class have that information. The students that were outside of class have that information, and notice that they were able to get it in about 11 minutes. And so that's 11 minutes outside of class while they were under quarantine that they were able to witness the same kinds of things that we were doing in class. In class, I don't show the video form. I just do it myself. And obviously they can ask questions, which doesn't work in the video format. However, they could email me and I would respond to them. And then after they watched this or saw it in class, then they could go back and they could take the test. And so, and I just asked very simple questions to make sure that their understanding was there. And so I found that this was super advantageous when we have kids leaving for long periods of time. And even prior to COVID, this was wonderful for the kids that, had a vacation to Belize to go build houses. That happens a lot, frankly, in our area, or those kinds of humanitarian vacations. And I don't want the kids to get behind. And so they would actually do the work before they left in Belize and would be ahead of the class, go on their vacation and come back and be ready to go. One of the other things that I like to do is discussions. And so I, in Canvas, created discussions that the students would then be able to be a part of and communicate with one another. And so this would happen outside of class for the most part. Again, especially with 2020 and all of the online learning that we did at the end of the 2020 school year, this was helpful to keep the kids engaged with one another while they were still being stuck at home having to do online classes. And so in this discussion, I put a YouTube link to a PBS special video that was phenomenal, and I recommend it. It's American Voices with Renee Fleming. And so the kids could watch and just click and watch the YouTube link. And after watching the YouTube link, then they would hit reply. And one of the things that they'd have to do is answer these two questions. What did you learn about the differences in musical theater styles of singing and traditional classic singing? And another question was, which singers or singers did you most enjoy listening to and watching in this part of the presentation? What did they do that made you enjoy their performance? I had a colleague once who told me that there are many roads to choral heaven, and I believe this. And one of the things that was so wonderful about it is that the kid that really loves musical theater, but maybe doesn't think that classical voice training is their cup of tea, this offered them something to talk about. And I just gave a couple of guiding questions, and then the students would write about that. And after they wrote and answered these questions, they would have to go read the other students' discussions. And when they would read those discussions, they would talk back and forth to one another, and relationships were built between students who really weren't well known to each other in class. But during the shutdown, these discussions kept it lively, kept them engaged with one another. And I would say probably 85% of my students took advantage of the online learning. And so that was really a great opportunity for them and for me then to respond to their discussions. And it allowed us to still build relationships and keep that connection, which is so important and vital for learning. And so I think that the Canvas discussions are a great way to do that.